Welcome, everybody, to Universal Truth of Mankind. I'm Dave, your host, and this is Kabbalah 101. So please subscribe to both Rumble and YouTube uh, for this channel. And also, please um, like and share these videos. They're all free, and I just want to get the word out. So just as a favor, do that for me. Okay, this is going to be an interesting one here. It may take a little longer to explain this, but I want to talk about prophecies and prophets. This is a subject I don't see anyone talking about. I'm the only one that I know. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't. I just haven't come across it yet. I'm sure there are. But I want to specifically talk about prophecies and prophets because our understanding of it is a very skewed, it's misunderstood. Um, and that's mainly because we take a very uh, non-biblical understanding of these things. We understand it according to influences of various um, pagan practices, cults, and stuff like that, and trying to understand what this thing is. So we have a very skewed understanding of what a prophecy is and what a prophets are. Now, when we think of a prophecy, we think of a prediction that's going to come true. Is that what a prophecy is? Well, no, it's not exactly that. You have to understand that a prophecy made by a prophet does not remove the how would I say it? The free will from the picture. So a prophet will say something like, if you do this, then that will happen. But if you do that, this won't happen, but that will happen. So now see what I'm saying? There's a preservation. In other words, the prophet's purpose was to give people a choice. In other words, give them an awareness that there's a decision point. There's a crisis of not belief, but a crisis of a proper decision or a bad decision being to be made. And you have to choose the right path. If you don't choose the correct path, then you're going to be in trouble. And this is what's going to happen. So the prophet is just trying to raise awareness to this issue that has to be taken care of. That's all it is. They're not taking away a person's free will. Now, if you go into other things, other religions, they take free will away. No, you will be doing this. You're going to become evil and you're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. Rather than if you do this, you're going to become evil, or your heart's going to be hardened. But if you don't want that to happen, then this is what you need to do, and this is what's going to happen. See what I'm saying? Freedom of choice. There's also another aspect of prophecy that is not often talked about. And that is that a prophecy has to take place within the lifetime of the prophet. If it is not within the lifetime of the prophet, then it is not a prophecy. I've seen people say, oh, yes, there will be a virgin birth. They use a certain passage in the Tanakh. Well, first of all, it's not virgin birth. That's not what the Hebrew says. That's what the translators say because they want it to fit their narrative. They want proof. They created proof for their belief system. See, without prophecy, religions fail. Religions, this is why I'm not religious. Doesn't mean that I'm excusing myself from moral obligations. What I mean by that is religions tend to use prophecy as a means to legitimize their belief system. I ain't part of that. That's why it has to be within the lifetime of the prophet. And if it doesn't come true during the lifetime of prophet, then that prophet's not considered prophet. If the prophet is considered a prophet, then it had to have happened within the lifetime of the prophet who made that prophecy. So it had to have taken place during the life of that prophet. Just the way it is. No way out of that, people. But there's also another thing that often is mistaken as prophecy, but is not prophecy. So that's two items now, but this is a little more complex. We read in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says there's a time for war, there's a time for peace, there's a time for birth, there's a time for death, and so on and so forth. Now, understand what's being talked about there. It's not talking about a linear life. In other words, we have what? Spring, summer, fall, winter. Spring, summer, fall, winter, so forth. In other words, we're repeating. We're cyclical. We're not linear. We're cyclical. The moon going around the earth, cyclical. The earth and the moon going around the sun, cyclical. Our solar system going around something, cyclical. Maybe it takes 1 billion years. It's still secular. It's still a cycle, cyclical, cycle over and over. So in Ecclesiastes, we're talking about cycle of life, life and death, life and death, life and death, reincarnation, life and death, life and death, life and death, until you carry out your purpose, life and death, life and death. You follow what I'm saying? It's all cyclical. So when Moses said in Deuteronomy, he says to the people, oh, you're going to screw things up. Here's the curses. Well, first of all, they're not curses. It's the result of your action. You're not going to be cursed because you do such and such. This is what's going to happen. In other words, if I go, when I was a kid, if I went into, and I actually did this, I went to I was in the apartment with my parents, and they had a fire extinguisher, in case of a fire. And I pulled the pin out, squirted it all over. I think I was like 4 years old. That's pretty young. Boy, did I get a whooping. Woo! Boy, did I get spanked. Why did I get spanked? Because I did a bad thing with the fire extinguisher and I was told not to touch it. Okay. So I received punishment. Not a curse, it's a punishment. Now, did I learn from that? Yes, I didn't do it anymore. And what happens? The curse, the punishment, is no longer needed. It goes away. So he says, oh, this is what's going to happen. And he says, you will do this. And then later on, he says, however, you're going to come back and you're going to have these blessings. Blessings, why? Because I learned from my original mistake and I'm not going to repeat it. And therefore, I will receive blessings because I'm no longer doing this stuff. So I'm either going to get punished or I'm not going to get punished. I'm going to get punished or I'm going to get blessed. That's the two angles you can go on. But he says he's talking to the same audience. What he's saying is that support of reincarnation is that we're going to learn and we're going to return. Why is this important? Because it's not a prophecy. Moses was saying, you're part of the cycle of life. You're going to make a mistake, you're going to get punished. You make another mistake, you're going to get punished. You do the right thing, you're going to be blessed. You come back, oh, you made another mistake, you're going to be punished again. And then you're going to come back, oh, good, you're going to be blessed now. We're going to constantly go through a learning process. This is just the cycle of life. It's not prophecy. And if you don't understand these cycles, you're going to chalk them up as prophecies, but they're not prophecies. So you see, just in those three matters alone, destroys certain religious systems where they're trying to say, oh, it was prophesied here, it was prophesied there, it was no, no, no. If it's a prophecy, it had to have happened in the lifetime of that person who said the prophecy. And if the prophecy is without a freedom of choice, I question it. Because God wants us to make right choices, but he wants us to make the choice. He's not looking to take the decision away from us. If there's no decision to be made and it's a prophecy, then you have to say, God's going to take my decision away from me? No. Then it must be a cycle, a repetitious cycle that the ancient people knew of. Zohar speaks of these things. There's a lot of information in the Zohar about these cycles. Prophecies a lot, but oh, there is one more. I'm sorry. One more item. There was a fourth. Sorry about that. A prophet never speaks of self. Never speaks of himself or herself. Never speaks of themselves. Speaks of only for God. God said, he says exactly the same thing. He said exactly the same thing. Never does God say, will say, oh, this person, this prophet is going to become your king. No, doesn't work that way, people. There's 4 reasons why many religions fail my test. Take care, everybody. Shalom, shalom.